Hi there, meteorologist Ed Valley here, taking a look at the long range. John is out this weekend, so I am filling in for him today. We have one system leaving the Northeast that brought a lot of snow and cold to the Northeast. We also have another system coming in on the West Coast. That one is going to deliver some moisture to the central U.S. here, especially the southeastern ag belt as we head into Sunday and Monday. But I want to talk about the longer pattern here as a whole in today's video after I go over the sensible weather in the next 10 days, because I think a lot of this is related to storm-induced cold, if you will. So this system right now going on in the Northeast is a good example, right? Without that initial burst of cold and the cold advection that comes in behind it, it wouldn't be nearly as cold as we're going to see here into the weekend across the Northeast. And then again, secondarily, with this next system coming in Sunday, Monday, that's going to drive cold even deeper into the northeastern and central part of the United States. So that's where all of our heating demand is going to be driven from through the beginning of next week. It's mostly New England focused. Notice some ridging coming back here in parts of the middle of the country. That's going to actually be a reprieve from the cold here for a little while. And you notice right through most of next week, you see where that cold is oriented. It's oriented into New England, right? And a lot of that stems from the upper level pattern in the higher latitudes here, right? You see here as we get into next week, you got a big ridge setting up here in Western North America. So what goes up must come down, right? And what we're seeing is the result is initially pretty darn cold. We're not getting a lot of help from Greenland, though. It's all on the western side of North America where this cold is being derived from. It's coming down really from the polar source of where all that cold has been in Alberta and parts of the Canadian prairies. So these air parcels are being driven southeastward into New England, and that's where all the cold is coming from. But you notice around day 7, we actually have a pretty good ridge that's starting to develop here, but it's not just across the U.S., it's across the entire higher latitude space. And that is striking and something that is important to us, because by day 10, you see it's really starting to come together. You see the ring, if you will, around the higher latitudes, all with above normal heights. So at one time here, we were concerned that the southeast ridge was going to build back in here for the last even half of January. And at this point, it'd be foolish to continue running with that just based on these higher latitude changes of late. And it's really unanimous. Here's the European model around the same time, not quite as healthy of a block near Greenland. The Canadian, you can see it's there as well. Now let's move it out towards day 13. You see the same idea. Canadian, the GFS, and the European. The difference again is the European is not quite as favorable near Greenland, but by day 15, you can really see all that ridging near Alaska driving some of this cold into the middle of the country. Now, a solution like the European model would likely drive cold into the middle of the country and allow for some warmer times along the East Coast. Just the way this pattern is oriented. You see this big ridge poking up here from Alaska should allow for cold to kind of displace itself southward. Now, you look at a pattern like the GFS, where it's a little bit more hefty on the Atlantic side of things. Notice the Canadian is closer to the European. But the GFS, that would open the door for more cold in the eastern part of the United States too. And you notice that here on the 5-day, you can see that cold really starting to come down. But still, the eastern coast of the United States is a little bit warmer. And all of this cold is really centered up in the northern part of the United States. And you can see here the Canadian is a little bit colder. So what did we do to kind of get a peek at what we think could happen? Well, we're using analogs and research to do that. This is from the CPC. They do an 8 to 14 day analog centered on day 11. So they take the pattern at day 11, they look at it, and then they compare it to other times in the past where that pattern has looked similar. And the dates of which that is true for day 11, which is centered on 11/15 or 1/15, excuse me, you see those dates here. So what I did was I plotted those dates with temperature, and you notice it is a colder regime kind of looking like the GFS does a little bit here. And then I rolled them forward a little bit into the 16 to 20 day, and it still looks colder. So why did I bring that up? Well, I brought that up at the top, talking about how the current idea we have needs to be at least altered a little bit, right? So now it appears that any sort of warm-up is going to have to wait, because again, with this type of orientation in Alaska and in Western North America, there is a path to cold entering the United States. Now, again, I think a lot of this hinges on two things. How does Greenland perform? Do we see more blocking show up near Greenland? Also, storminess, right? If you get storms along the East Coast, that's likely going to lead to ups and downs, right? So it's a really, really interesting idea, and something that I think over time will really start to show itself as we get a little bit closer. But for now, I'm really, really seeing this active pattern along the East Coast as something to keep our eye on, because you see more of that storminess. You're going to get more cold-induced periods like we're seeing now in the Northeast. So we'll keep our eye on all of this. If you have questions, let us know, and we'll be back here on Monday with John in another video.